Karen from Countyfairgrounds USA, countyfairgrounds.net. Welcome to today's podcast.
Hi, this is CoolKay, and today we're going to talk to Alex Zerbe, Zaniac Comedy Show. Hi, Mr.
Hey.
Alex, how you doing?
How's it going, Kay? I'm doing pretty good. Just getting my morning started here in beautiful Olympia, Washington.
Okay, so you're a comedy show. How long have you been a comedy show?
I have been performing. In fact, I just had my, realized I had my 24-year anniversary of doing shows. January 19th, 1999 was when I did my first show. And, so I've been doing this for 24 years.
Okay, so you know what always interests me about you comedians? Have you ever done anything else?
I have, yeah, sure. I recently graduated college. I went back to college during the pandemic. So I just did that. Yeah, went back, finished my degree, and before that, in my as a young man, I had all sorts of odd jobs. My first job was a paper route when I was 13, and then I put food in a bag for a grocery store. I mowed lawns and did some landscaping. I scooped ice cream, served pizza. I worked at a bagel shop. I demonstrated toys for FAO Schwartz. I was a resident advisor for ESL students. I've done, but that was all a long time ago.
So, somewhere along the line, you became a comedian. Please explain.
I got into doing shows through the sport of Hacky Sack, which I think you're now familiar with because you interviewed my old partner, Matt Baker. I was just super into Hacky Sack as a young man, and I found out that you could do a job demonstrating Hacky Sack. I thought, I was like, what? You can make a living playing Hacky Sack? Sign me up. And that was the job I got like 24 years ago. I got this job doing school assembly shows. So I traveled all over the East Coast of the United States doing school shows, and through that I learned how to juggle. And I met a guy named Peter Irish, who had been a professional street performer in San Francisco. And I was like, what? No, what did you do? And he was like, yeah, I used to be a professional juggler. And I was like, that's like a job you can do? And he was like, yeah, I know a bunch of people who are, professional comedy jugglers. And I was like, that's what I'll do for my career. Because I was just kind of looking. I was like, what am I going to do? I was like 21 years old, and I was looking for a job. At the time, I was like, man, I don't need to make a lot of money, but I want a job that I enjoy. I want a career that I enjoy. After doing all those jobs I listed off, I was just like, oh man, I just want something that is fun and that I'm interested in. And so that's what I chose to do. And here we are, 24 years later.
Okay, let's back up a little bit. You just graduated from college with what?
I have a history degree and a minor in teaching.
Okay. Are you going to give up being a comedian?
No, but, my job is physical by nature. I do a very physical show, and I ain't getting any younger. So at some point, that things might it might be a little bit harder for me to keep doing shows. I'm still pretty young, still in good shape. But, we always have to plan towards the future. And, you can be a funny history teacher. Maybe, we'll see. I'm not there yet, but I'm one step closer than I used to be. And honestly, I just, when the pandemic hit, I just needed something to do. It was great to have a break for a few months afterwards, just because I just, I've been working so hard for so many years, and it was finally like, oh my gosh, I get to chill. And then after chilling for a while, I was like, all right, I got to do something. So I went back to school, just graduated magna cum laude, presented my undergrad history thesis at the Washington State History Museum last week. So that was very cool.
Okay. All right. So tell me, what was your first big show and how did that happen?
Oh God, my first big show? What's a big show? Like, what are we?
How did you get started in doing it? I know you did the Hacky Sack, and I know what that is. You're right. Okay. So how did you get started though? What did you do first?
Well, I got this job doing school shows. That was how I got started. And I met this guy, Peter Irish. This guy named Scott Clear had hired me to do his show. So it was a show he had developed, and he trained me how to do it. But I was still pretty green, didn't have hardly any experience. So the first 2 weeks of this 5-month tour, he sent me out on the road with Pete, and Pete just kind of coached me up a little bit and, made sure I was doing the show okay, at least at like a professional level. And that's how I did it. And so I did that for 5 months. And then me and my wife, who was in the Hacky Sack Hall of Fame, she went on the road with me for about 6 months. We did that tour together. She's not really a performer though. So after that, we moved back to Seattle, where I'm from. I'm originally from Seattle, Washington. And I started trying to do some street shows and stuff, and then I eventually hooked up with Matt, who I think you interviewed for your last podcast. And we had a duo act called the Brothers from Different Mothers for about 10 years. And then, our relationship had been deteriorating for a while. I think we were just kind of we were both ready to move on and do different things. So, we split the business up, and we had like a transition. We had like a transition time, probably about a year, where we knew we were going to split up. So we really did have like a smooth transition into our solo acts. And we just had different interests. I love performing for family audiences. I love kids and their parents is like my ideal kind of an audience. So I love doing school assembly shows. I do a lot of, theater shows that are, the family series. Performing arts centers will do these, like a family series, and they'll have like 4 family shows in their year. And so sometimes I'll be one of those. And then of course I still do a few county fairs here and there.
Okay.
And that's kind of the how I got into doing comedy juggling shows.
Okay, all right. Now I'm looking at your website, and it says you hold 2 Guinness World Records. Please explain.
So the first, I usually don't tell this story, but I will tell you the story of how I got my first Guinness World Record. So all the Hacky Sack nerds, they all keep track of all the records for all of the tons and tons of tricks that Hacky Sack players do. Nobody really cares because it's such a niche thing. But I'd been trying to break a record for a long time. The record for this trick called Eclipse was held by this dude named Noah, and he had 23 in a row, 23 consecutive eclipses, and I really wanted to break it. I don't know why I got so obsessed with this one particular trick. So I had been working hard to break it, and I had tied the record. So I had done 23, and then another dude, this dude Ken Somolinos, he also had tied the record. So we had a 3-way tie for this record. And then in August of 2002, at the World Championships, just in kind of like sideline play, I broke the record. I got 26 eclipses, and I was all stoked. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been trying for such a long time. I broke this record, and I was super stoked. And so, whoever was maintaining the list at the time was like, all right, cool. Zerbe's got the record for eclipse, 26. Cool. Awesome. And I kind of moved on with my life, and that was kind of it. And then several years later, a woman who I know, this woman, Trisha George, a really great woman, really amazing Hacky Sack player, kind of the generation older than me when it comes to footbag. We were meeting up with her for dinner and a few other footbag folks. And she was like, oh, congratulations on your Guinness World Record. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't have a Guinness World Record. And she's like, oh, no, you definitely do. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, look, I check the book every year because she has a couple records. So I always check, she was like, I always check to see if they publish my name in the book. And they didn't, but your name was in there. And I was like, what? And so as soon as I had a chance, I went to a bookstore. I grabbed a copy of the book, and lo and behold, my name was in the Guinness Book of World Records. They had me down for 26 consecutive eclipses. And I was like, how do they even know about this? So I did a little digging, and apparently a French guy named Frank, who I knew, he had tried to break my record on a French television show. You know, they have these Guinness World Record shows all over the world. I don't know if they still do this anymore, but they have these shows. And he had made an attempt to break my record, and he was one short. He got 25. And so he gave them my name. He was like, yeah, I couldn't break the record. The guy who has it is this dude, Alex Zerbe. He gave them my name. They put my name in the book, and that is how I got my first Guinness World Record, in big part thanks to Frank. So huge shout out to Frank. Appreciate that. Yeah. That's how that's how I got my first Guinness World Record in the Guinness
Well,
World
keep
Record.
going. You have two of them.
All right. So the second one, I got contacted in 2008 by a Chinese television show. They wanted me to come out and try to break my record. And at the time, like, this is years after, this is 6 years after I broke my record. I was out of competitive foot bag. I was not capable of breaking this record. I physically was not going to be able to make a legitimate attempt. But I'm also not going to turn down a free trip to China and some money. And so I sold them. And, I was partnered up with Matt. We were the brothers from different mothers at the time. And, despite our kind of contentious relationship, I was still in this duo. So I sold them on the idea of a couple other records. And one of which was a team record where one person juggles 3 juggling clubs. The other person runs up behind them, leapfrogs their body, so pushes off on their shoulders and jumps over their body. And then while you're kind of doing that leapfrog, the person jumping over grabs the 3 clubs. You do an exchange. And so we pitched them on this idea for most exchanges in 60 seconds. And they were like, okay, cool, you guys can do that one. So we both fly out to Beijing in 2008. It was the year of the Olympics. But after the Olympics, this is like November 2008. We fly out to China and we set the Guinness World Record. The two of us set the Guinness World Record for that trick in China. Yeah, so that's how the second one came about.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Well, I'm sure I mean, if you're in the fair industry, life is a lot of work, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah. Hey,
but it was
Alex.
great. I mean, it was a great experience. Going to China was incredible,
I would imagine.
We were only there for a couple of days, but like the first day, the air pollution in Beijing was insane. I mean, I'm talking like, we were on the 7th floor of our hotel, and even like looking out the window, you couldn't see the ground. And then the second day, it all blew away, and it was totally clear. Yeah, it's intense. Intense levels of air pollution, believe me.
Hey, do you have kids?
I do. I have 2 teenage daughters, and one of them drove to the school. My older daughter drove my younger daughter to school for the first time today. It was like she just got her license, and it's like, oh my gosh, my kids got themselves to school in a car. It's crazy. Yeah, it's wild. So
what do they think of your career?
Children. Oh, I don't know. I guess you'd have to ask them. I think for them, it's just like whatever. It's normal. It's just what they grew up with. But I do think it's good for them to see, I think they see me working hard. I know they saw me working hard when I got my degree. And I think it's really good for kids to see, my wife works for the state. And I think it's good. They get to see like, oh, hey, here's Dad who has his own, where he runs his own business. He's his own boss, and he's hustling and driving all over the place doing these shows and in front of the computer, sending contracts out, and, booking these shows and, working hard. So I think they can kind of see like, hey, we have an artist and we have, a more traditional job. And so they kind of get to see each of the parents kind of have these 2 different things. But we both work very hard, and so I hope that rubs off. I hope they see like that hard work is something that's important to your success and your happiness.
Okay, so you do a science show? What is that?
I do, yeah. I do a science show called Gravity Catastrophe. I put it together in like 2013 because I perform at a lot of libraries. I love doing these library shows. Most of them get booked in the summer. But usually they have like a theme, every year there's a national theme for the summer reading program. It might be like dream big or I don't know, there was a bug theme one year, which wasn't one of my favorites, but they have these themes, maybe it's like an undersea theme or something like that. And one of the themes was a science theme. And I was like, okay, usually I kind of do the theme halfway, maybe throw a couple little elements into my pre-existing show. But with the science theme, I was like, well, I'm going to be able to book a science show. If I create a good science show, that's something that I can, I can sell all year round to schools. So I put together a science show, and it really increased, the amount of business I was able to do, particularly with the schools and with the theaters too, because sometimes these theaters, they'll book you for the theater, but then you'll do a few outreach performances at schools. So I can come in and I can be like, yeah, a theater will book me. I can do the science show in the schools, get the kids all excited, and then tell them to come out to the theater, that night or the next night. And it's like a totally, it's a new show. So they get a little bit of, they can see the science show and then they come back to the theater, bring their parents and see the Zaniac comedy show. So it was a perfect complement to what I was already doing, and really made my business grow quite a bit.
How long is the show that you do, the science show?
My science show is an hour. I can shorten it. I can lengthen it out a little bit, and I take questions. So some of that hour is questions. But yeah, science show is 60 minutes.
Oh, that's cool. All right. So all you performers, I asked this question of, you must have had some really bad experiences that made you rethink about your career. Do you want to share some things?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I've ever really rethought my career. I just look around at what other people are doing. I have a friend who works for Amazon. He's been there for a long time. He makes a ton of money. And I look at him. He's very successful. He's rich. He's very wealthy. He owns lots of houses in Seattle. Owns like 4 homes in Seattle. And I just look at that and I'm like, I wouldn't be happy, but I wouldn't be happy doing that. I wouldn't be happy having his job. And I certainly wouldn't want a job just, working at a grocery store or something like that. So I don't think I've ever had anything that's made me rethink my career. But I have had some gigs, that are like, oh gosh, what am I doing here? And that's I know, this is a kind of a fair focused podcast, but that's one of the reasons I don't do as many fairs as I used to. Fairs they're great money. They're a lot of work, but I don't think any performers are really scared of work. For me, it's the things where you end up in these situations where they don't set up your show. They don't set you up to do a good show. You're out there. It's like you're at a fair. It's 100 degrees. It's 98 degrees. They don't have shade for the audience. They don't. You're not in shade. The audience is like super far away from you. It's like, hey, your fair's in the summer, it's going to be 100 degrees, 98 degrees, like set it up so your audience is comfortable. So you have these performers, you're investing all this money into having a performer come in for 5 days to do 3 shows a day, but then you don't put up some shade for your audience. It's like, hey, why don't you take some of that money, skip a performer 1 year, and put in some concrete poles and string some shade cloths so your audience can be comfortable. Those are the types of gigs where I'm just like, what am I even doing? Where it's just, not to say that's exclusive to fairs, but and some fairs are great. I'm not trying to. Some fairs are like, oh, awesome, yeah, we're all undercover. Boom, yeah, sure, it's hot and everything, but the fair has set it up for a great show. Everyone's undercover. They got it set up. So that's my advice to fairs, and I know I'm not alone with other performers, is set your performers up for success, because that's what you want. When a performer succeeds, the fair succeeds as well, because they'll have good shows.
So is there some place you would like to perform that you have not had the opportunity?
Oh, gosh. Oh, man, I don't know. My favorite types of shows are theaters. But there's not any one like, oh, if I could get into that one theater or something like that. Not really. Although, right before the pandemic hit, I was touring Alberta, Canada in February. And I'm out there like, why am I not booking a tour in Hawaii? As it's like, negative 10 degrees and I'm driving across frozen freeways from one show to another in February. I'm like, I should book something in Arizona for this time of year.
Well, they have fairgrounds there, and they have fairs and things in Hawaii, too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I wasn't doing fairs in Alberta. No, I was doing schools and theaters.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, at least that was inside, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, all those shows are inside. You're not performing outside in February in Alberta. That's not happening.
You never know. You could be a first.
I guess. Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm cool with performing in below freezing temperatures. I'm all straight with that. But I've been really fortunate. I've been really fortunate with my career. I really enjoy what I do. I like that I get to, I get to mix it up a little bit. It's like you have a creative outlet, you have lots of different types of things that you can do. And if you're like, oh, I really want to book these types of shows or those types of shows, as an artist, you have the flexibility to perform wherever you want, as long as it works, right? You have to book in a market that books the type of show that you're performing in. And but I love the flexibility that you have as a performing artist.
So
it's great.
So you're a juggler and a magician, right?
Not really. I don't really do magic. I kind of put that on my website because I think people search for magicians when they're looking for variety acts, when they're looking for jugglers. But I don't really do magic. But I'm a juggler, a physical comedian. I have lots of gags in my show. I also do a lot of like rap songs. I do some comedy rap songs in my show. You know, we're not like talking street rap or gangster rap or anything like that. But I do like, you know, family friendly. Like in my science show, I have a little rap about the scientific method. I have an arts and literacy show where I rap about libraries. You know, I have a goofy song where I get kids up there jumping up and down, putting their hands in the air and stuff and acting silly. I have a song about being a dad that I wrote when my kids were young. So I like to write these silly rap songs. I think as a performer, particularly a juggler, I see a lot of jugglers out there, and that's kind of all they do. They're just like, yeah, I do like different juggling tricks, and it's like that's it. And I think it really helps, you know, performers to be multidisciplinary, to add another element to your act. If you're a magician, hey, well, can you incorporate some dance into your show, or can you, you know, incorporate comedy, whatever it is. I think the more different elements you can bring into your show, the more interesting and entertaining it'll be. I think it's really hard to sustain a long show if all you're doing is juggling. I think it's a lot harder.
So you're booked for the upcoming season, right? Where are you going to perform this upcoming season? Can you tell us some of the places?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm going to be at the Grant County Fair. I'll be at the Classic County Fair. I'm going to be at a bunch of libraries in Oregon. I think I'm going back to Whidbey. We'll see. I should probably reach out to them. You know, I do some like Parks and Rec type shows. I got some of those happening, you know, or like, you know, these little towns will do their like yearly summer celebration, like, you know, Millville Days or whatever little town, you know, their summer festival. I got a few of those. So, I got a bunch of schools kind of coming up. Yeah, you know, just the usual.
Okay, so do you do your own booking?
I do, yeah. I do all my own booking. I mean, occasionally an agent will call me for a gig here and there, but I don't have, you know, some people have like, I have like a college agent that books me my college shows, and I have a fair agent that books me my fair shows or whatever it is. And I do have there's a little bit of that. You know, like I'm working with Sunny Saunders, Sunny Jack Events. She's booked me a couple fairs this year, just because I just don't have time to go to these fair conventions really anymore. But for the most part, I do all my own booking and my own marketing.
All right, so tell people how to reach you.
Oh, yeah, well, you can always find me on the social medias. I am Professional Zaniac on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. And, you can always go to my website, alec-zerbe.com or thezaniac.com. That's how to reach me. Okay,
thank you, Mr. Zaniac.
Yeah, hey, thank you. Thanks for giving me the chance to talk with you. And, let me know. Stay in touch.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Bye.